Andy, I know you've never been happier than when you're sitting by a warm fire, snuggled up in a flannel and basking in the glow of an old-school budget spreadsheet.
It is a special day I can shut down the world for a little me time.
In a world full of applications, why do these antiquated documents and spreadsheets still run the world? And why haven't they been updated in over 50 years? That's why we want to talk about Coda.
Coda is a new kind of doc that brings words, data, and teams together. It comes with a set of building blocks that anyone can combine to create a doc as powerful as an app.
Coda runs our entire business here at True Story FM, from show scheduling across dozens of podcasts and scripts for thousands of episodes, to budgets and plans and wikis and more.
Coda lets us see our business in a new light. If you'd like to shine a light on productivity in your business and save money along the way, check out Coda today at thenextreel.com/Coda. It's hard to believe that we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies. All that said, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes.
Becoming a Next Reel member gives you access to all sorts of additional and exclusive content. Plus, you're helping us keep the lights on. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership, where you can learn more about becoming a member, which costs a measly $5 a month, practically the same as one fancy coffee drink. And you get so much more.
Every month, we record a bonus episode exclusively for members. Those episodes cover movies from whatever series we're covering at the moment, or add to previous series.
Some movies we've covered that only members get to hear us discuss include The Blues Brothers,
The Russia House,
Naked Lunch,
Independence Day,
The Hot Rock,
and Relic, the better one. Plus, members get to vote on what we're going to discuss for those episodes.
We also record additional pre- and post-show content in regular episodes that only members get to hear.
Like conversations about similarly themed movies.
And answering listener questions from our live member chat.
Speaking of our live member chat, we record almost all of our episodes in Discord, where members can chat right along with us live.
Members get access to other members-only channels in our Discord community as well. On top of all that, members get all episodes a full week earlier than everyone else in a private Next Reel feed just for them that includes all the shows in the Next Reel family. The Next Reel, the Film Board,
movies we like, Sitting in the Dark, and more new projects on the way.
To top it all off, members don't have to listen to ads. We've already eliminated those annoying, dynamically inserted ads that, let's face it, we all hated.
We are listening to you.
We love podcasting for a living, and those ads help to pay the bills. Now, we're counting on you, dear listener.
We promise we aren't going back to those terrible, dynamically inserted ads that don't relate to us at all. All we ask is that you consider supporting the Next Reel family of podcasts with a membership.
Again, it's $5 per month or $55 per year. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership.
thenextreel.com/membership. Get your access to early, ad-free episodes with bonus content, member bonus episodes, and access to member channels and live streams in Discord by signing up today.
Welcome, everyone, to another TNR short brought to you by The Next Reel on the Rash Pixel FM podcast network. If you didn't know, we spoil movies, and we're going to spoil a lot of them for you tonight, so be aware. My name is JJ, and I'm joined here tonight by Tommy Handsome. Tom, say hi.
Hello, friends.
Tonight, we're going to talk about Mindbenders, and I don't know what else to call it, but I wanted to float the topic in this venue because I don't know, would you call it a style? I looked at it as like style or subgenre. I don't know what to call it, but it's one of my favorite ways to tell a story in film.
Well, at first I want to call it head scratchers.
Head scratchers. Usually I use words that are not safe for TV to describe it. Other things. Right. Yes. But let's talk. Okay, so the movies that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about movies like Fight Club and 12 Monkeys, where you get to the end and you leave the theater thinking, wait, did that just really happen? Or movies like Shutter Island and Sucker Punch, where you end the film not knowing if you can trust the frame of reference that the narrator or the given protagonist was kind of feeding you throughout the story. Or some of them that are like my favorite are movies like Total Recall and Inception, where you can have extended debates at the end about whether the fantastic story was real or literally just a story. Movies, then other movies too, things that close the loop with the viewer. And I think that's kind of the real sort of contrast that we want to talk about tonight, which is things like Identity or The Wizard of Oz, where they debunk the myth before you walk away. So what did you said it was head scratchers?
I just wanted to make it as dumb sounding as possible.
Well, I know that's not a technical term in Hollywood, but do you think it's a subgenre?
I think it can be a subgenre sometimes, especially for horror. Maybe in the work of M. Night Shyamalan, it can be seen as a gimmick. But
gimmick.
The idea of it definitely can be a gimmick. But I think if the person really sets out to tell that kind of story, then it could be a subgenre. Usually, Hollywood doesn't enjoy ambiguity.
Right.
And to have that in there is something that I love and I think is so important and cool. But it's got to be quite a fight from filmmakers to do that.
Well, me too. And I know that you've talked about the unreliable narrator, that being one of your sort of favorite frames of reference to start with. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what are some of your favorites that kind of go into that realm?
It's interesting. Two of my favorites that involve an unreliable narrator.
Sure.
A lot of times in fiction, books, the unreliable narrator has something to hide.
Okay.
And you only learn later that he or she is lying to you, and maybe you figure out why.
Is that like a Holden Caulfield thing, or?
Not sure. I don't think I ever read the entire book.
That's okay. I just thought that would be the most classic reference for us to go to. Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger.
Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger. Yeah. I guess, but to sidestep that, humanities major.
Fair.
Two of my favorite movies that involve quote unquote unreliable narrators, they're not lying to you. They just are falling victim inside of their own minds for one reason or another.
And I love that.
One of the examples that pops into my head is Brazil.
Okay.
Brazil by Terry Gilliam is a narrative film for the majority of it. And then all of a sudden he's strapped down, spoiler alert, he's strapped down into the torture chair where they're going to begin torturing him. And there's this wild rescue sequence fronted by the renegade air conditioner repairman led by Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And the movie sort of starts to spin out of control. It becomes more allegorical. It becomes more fantasy-like until the end when he has a wonderful driving off into the sunset moment where then the hammer drops and it turns out that he just sort of escaped into his own mind. They were about to start torturing him and he went mad.
Yeah.
And he's there with a happy smile on his face. But so we got the happy ending. In a way, he got the happy ending. But by definition, it is unreliable. It was not real.
See, and I love that, and that's actually one of Andy's favorite movies. I know. I mean, I've listened to I think The Next Reel has a Brazil podcast where they talk about everything, and on Andy's flick chart, Brazil is always like a defensible space,
right,
for going up or going down. Is it better than Brazil? Or
I think that's the only reason Andy likes me is I put that on my info page. That Brazil was in my top 5.
You're in.
I think all of my monkey shines after that has gotten a pass, which is nice.
Okay, so Brazil. Is there any others that you off the top of your head?
Potentially Jacob's Ladder.
Okay.
And this one is a little bit tougher. Jacob's Ladder is a really tough, weird read about what's really going on. So I'm not sure it exactly belongs in here.
Okay.
But at some point, there is a reading that you can read it to say that he has made up his own happy ending, just like the protagonist in Brazil.
Right.
That while he is dying on the operating room in Vietnam, and it's interesting because he's actually given himself 2 to 3 different happy futures, almost like his real mind is starting to counteract that. Both of them start breaking down.
And they're so extended, right? I mean, like they're years beyond the war.
Yes.
Which is just, I don't know. I find it brilliant, and we've talked about at length in the film board about how I can't do horror, but that's a movie that is so deep in the mind that I actually just value the story so much that I want that kind of depth.
Right. And so to bring it back to what you were saying, the unreliable narrator, those are just two films that popped into my head, but they're not a traditional unreliable narrator.
Sure.
Or maybe they are. I'm not sure.
But that's exactly the kind of stuff that I'm talking about here. What is it for you that you like about those types of movies? Like, how does that connect with what you like when you go to see a movie?
Well, the first answer, and I want to explore this a teeny bit, but the first answer for me is I just love being taken by surprise.
Well, that's cool because I don't like surprises at all, but I still like them.
Right.
So there are two different ways to enjoy this kind of movie, I think. You know, what you were saying about Jacob's Ladder is actually interesting to me because my favorite that is like this is Donnie Darko. And it's interesting that you bring up two in Brazil and Jacob's Ladder, in that it's stories, or your interpretation of it was that there were stories that the characters created for themselves to give them a happy ending. And when I talk about Donnie Darko, there's a lot of debate about, and I shouldn't say to people who don't like Donnie Darko or who aren't as big of a fanboy as I am about it, they probably aren't into this debate. But when people saw Donnie Darko, there was some debates actually on like IMDb bulletin boards and things about whether the story, the awkward, strange story with the crazy rabbit actually happened, or if it's just his life flashing before his eyes before he dies in the wreck with the plane. You know, and I don't know. I guess for me, that debate is what makes it special to me.
Yes, we go back to ambiguity.
Right.
That there is something to talk about where it's not that the filmmaker has made all of the decisions. Sorry, not the filmmaker, the writer, the production crew, the filmmaker, that they have made all of the stories for you. We have plenty of wonderful slice of life movies or just based in real life, real reality. But to end a movie and to have people really kind of want to debate and wonder about what was really happening and what wasn't, I really like that. I think a lot of people find that frustrating. But I'm like you. I think to make a movie that people want to talk about more than just saying things like, it's not the best movie I ever saw, which is the dumbest phrase in the history of talking. Film board listeners.
Better than Cats.
It's better, yeah. But the idea of really debating what the filmmaker gave us, the film really becomes sort of a clouded window at that point, and we're only able to see what the filmmaker wants us to see. And if there's something to really debate about that, that's exciting.
Have you ever gotten involved in an argument about a movie, about whether it really happened? Do you know about those arguments out there in the internet world?
Do. Yeah, I've been involved in arguments with friends. Arguments is the wrong thing. Fun debates with friends that went on so long. I think, JJ, you were on one that someone that had been roped in to see the movie with us kindly told us on email to stop emailing her about it. She wanted to drop out of the email train because she had a life to live, not us.
Please take me off this list.
Exactly. But no, Inception was a big one for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do arguments... So my question about these types of movies, and in movies like Inception and the ones we're talking about, do arguments about whether it really happened, does that matter? My thing about it, like Total Recall is the one that I go back to on that, is like, what was he really on Mars, or was it just a memory that was put in there? Is that the central point of a movie with this gimmick? I'm going to use gimmick for now.
Sure.
Is that is the point of whether it happened or not? Is that the reason why this creation gimmick exists, or is there something deeper? Because I think that for people like you and me that see the movie, that is sometimes the real sort of flame of creativity. But for others, it's just like it becomes like that person who asked off the list. It's just, it was a movie and I'm going on.
Yeah, there's two, and with Total Recall, you're going off of the blue skies on Mars. I've never seen that before.
Oh,
line. That's the big tipping point in the. We're talking, I assume, about the original Total Recall, right?
Yes. Yeah. I haven't seen the Colin Farrell.
Yeah, when he's loading up the program, he says, "Oh, blue skies on Mars. I've never seen that before," and the rest plays out pretty straightforward. That's sort of the one big clue. There's two ways of looking at it, and people can get. I mean, a lot of people sometimes look at films like this as a puzzle. Yeah. Almost like an Agatha Christie puzzle that is able to be found out. That there are enough clues, and those are the people that in Inception say you can clearly see that his totem, the top, is starting to stutter. So of course it'll stop. Right. Well, that's a way of talking about it. That's definitely valid. I don't think that's as much fun. I think that one way, what I usually like to look at is, here's what I think. And partly it's because here's what I want to believe. And that's not always that it's because it's a happy ending. Was this redemptive? Did this character make up? It's always about sins in the past for a lot of these movies. Did this character make up for the horrible things that he or she have done? And as a result, do you think that he or she deserves this and would get this in real life?
See, all of that, being able to talk about it, being able to do what we do on the film board and on the next reel is why I see movies in the first place. So that's why I like doing it. And that's why I like these kind of movies.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, this may or may not make any sense for what we're talking about here, but Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam, they made the song Jeremy, right?
Yes.
Do you know the song Jeremy?
He spoke in class today.
You've heard that.
Yes.
So at one point, after the song is wildly successful, there's this interview, and this, bear with me because this actually might be urban legend at this point, but there's an interview, I think I remember seeing him say it, where they ask Eddie Vedder about, well, was there a Jeremy, and was this written about this person, and this sort of, does it, and Eddie Vedder said something to the effect of, well, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people right now, so I'm not going to tell you how I came up with the lyrics. And and I say it might be urban legend because that might be what I want Eddie Vedder to say, but
it's a good answer.
I think so too. Yeah. And when we talk about these kind of movies, I don't think filmmakers feel like that. I think filmmakers make a conscious choice to either close that loop or leave it interpretive for you. And I think that conceit, the gimmick, if it's there, the totem in Inception, or the Easter eggs like the blue skies on Mars, that kind of stuff, those things, I think they put them there on purpose because I think that's their purpose in making that. Do you think that, or do you think it's something different?
I do. No, I think that they do that on purpose. At risk of talking about myself, I'm clearly not a filmmaker in line with any of the other people that we're talking about, but I made a short film that had some good success. JJ, you were involved in it, called Adam and Evelyn. And it involves two very strange, you can see them as protagonists or antagonists. Either way, they're obviously somewhat otherworldly, but we never explained on purpose what they were.
Yeah.
And that was always the number one question of who was Adam and Evelyn in the short film that we got at every single Q&A that we got into, and we got into a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun things for me was to say, well, what did you think?
Yeah.
And I got a lot of different really cool answers. That can be seen as laziness. I did have a personal vote on what I thought it was, but there was no need to close that loop, like to use a phrase that you used before. Yeah. I would think that filmmakers that really like to use this, A, want people to talk, and also B, whatever's on the other side of a door, speaking of horror movies, whatever's on the other side of a door is always scarier until you open it. Right. And so the things that people can bring from their own lives, their own ideas and past experiences to a film that has ambiguity like that, why not? Why not let them do that to a certain extent? There are some times when it's just a cop-out. But but for the most part, I would think that lets the audience really get involved. It becomes more of an interactive experience instead of a passive watching experience.
Yeah, I love the conversation. And I think that, the fact that it's more interpretive, the fact that, that people can talk about it afterwards, I think it's a signal. Well, it is to me. It's a signal that that there's a better piece of art there. I don't know. I guess that's what I'm going to a movie looking for, is to be moved in some deeper fashion. But you talked about a person who would ask themselves out of that conversation that we're talking about, that we find important here. What do you think, like Joe moviegoer, who's out there seeing, when they see something like this, why do they ask to be out of the conversation? Why is it? How are they seeing movies like this when they don't want to consider whether a Mindbender is real or fake?
It's an interesting question. I'm a little bit, and I know you didn't mean it this way at all, I'm a little bit, there's a lot of levels of Joe Public.
Sure.
So just like the people that sort of maybe watch films as cheeseburgers. Wait, that's not a phrase. Eat, like movies are fast food entertainment. Okay. A lot of people, one obvious example maybe is that it makes them uncomfortable.
No.
That's why I brought up the cheeseburger. You don't ever talk about eating a cheeseburger and talking about it later with your friends.
Right.
That it's more just something that it's a distraction.
Yes.
And it's something that you can be entertained for a while and then go back to your life and not have to take it with you, not have to worry about someone questioning you about it. All this that's where the phrase, and I'm bringing it up again, is the phrase that became very popular for a while, which is, it's not the best film I've ever seen, but it's not the worst. That's literally saying nothing, but it's a defense mechanism, a way of just sort of saying, I'm not comfortable going on public record because I haven't taken the time to think about it, nor do I necessarily have the inclination to.
Right.
Did
so
that
it's
answer your
easier
question
to
at
be
all?
yeah, because I think maybe it's easier to be evasive, or considering it deeper. It might, cheeseburger is a good way. A good way to describe it. If someone likes one kind of food, and they dress their cheeseburger up with some really sort of hipster things, they're going to say, "Well, that was different."
Yeah,
but it's a cheeseburger.
Goat's cheese, and they put it in a shoe. You're like, I don't know. What'd you think? Yeah.
I don't know if anyone out there is going to like that metaphor, but I do. So one of the reasons that
we're not putting this on the air, are we?
Oh, of course we are.
Wait, are you recording this?
Cheeseburgers are delicious.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I thought about putting this on here is because Pete and Andy recently did a podcast about The Wizard of Oz, which I found really interesting in terms of the historical context for Mindbenders, in that in the book it was complete fantasy. And I learned that on their podcast, because I've never read the book. I've only seen the movie.
Yeah.
And that the dream aspect, her waking up in the bed and saying about, what was it, the Tin Man, oh, I missed you the most, and all this stuff. There was all these sort of...
Well, she sees everyone around her bed.
Right.
Is the people that were populated fantasy characters in her,
Yes.
whatever it was. Okay.
Yes, and that's not in the book. That's not in the source material. Hollywood closed the loop.
That's interesting.
And why? I mean, it's 1939, so I don't know, why, if it's something about the maturity of movies at the time. I know that there are other things out there, but obviously this was, The Wizard of Oz is a classic. But do you think there would be a reason for Hollywood to do something like that?
This is when we need that amazing woman that makes that amazing podcast. You must remember this.
Sure.
Which is because I would love to look at some of the history of other movies around that time, and maybe The Wizard of Oz was such a stretch and such a mix of normal on-earth girl that becomes involved in such an insane, hyper-worldly thing that they needed to ground it. Well, how did the book end?
I don't. Well, no, it's a series, and I don't even know if Wizard of Oz is the first. Yeah, and then it's like Adventures in Oz and all these different things. It's on my bookshelves right now.
Looking Glass?
No, that's Alice. But yeah,
is that Catcher in the Rye?
J.D. Salinger. Yes.
I've read one book. Thanks, Bible. Okay. Yes.
No, but it's like an entire series, and it goes through all these other adventures, which actually makes you think the Wicked franchise and all that stuff that's happening now really interesting when you consider that it's a new take on it. But I just think
I could see some sort of executive saying, yeah, but we need to bring it back. It can't just live like this. There aren't little people running around and bloody-blue.
Well, and Pete and Andy talked about the idea of not a love interest, but a relationship, a tight relationship with the Tin Man's earthly character and such, that they ended up discarding. But that kind of stuff where, you hear a lot of times that Hollywood needs an allegiance to a romance in a story, that they would infuse romance into a story where it didn't exist. And I wonder if this kind of thing, if we could find examples, and I don't know them right now off the top of my head, but where they're infusing the closed loop for the same reason.
Maybe. And it's also, it really is archetypal of some of the first stories we as people learn to tell when you're a young child, very, very young, and you start sort of making up stories.
Right.
Do you kind of? I remember all my stories ending up being, and then I woke up and it was all a dream. That's one of the first things that I learned in school when we started really writing. Way in grade school, they're like, that's just not allowed.
Yes.
They're like, free your mind, do whatever you want, but it can't just be a dream. That's a cop-out. Which is actually, that's interesting about what we're talking about right now. But either way, I wonder if there was a little bit of using that archetype, but then the brilliant idea of having the people around the bed to see where she got it from.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's a Hollywood thing. And I thought it made me think of It's a Wonderful Life, too, because I never saw It's a Wonderful Life until I was an adult. But you think about that where it's by nature a closed loop story. I don't think you could tell that in a open mind-bender way. But
right.
It still creates this fantastical story where you consider it's debunking the myth, or it's actually like giving you the myth, right? So it's not debunking it. It's actually writing the myth as you see the movie. But it's that kind of thing too, where you see this and was his experience for him?
Because It's a Wonderful Life is kind of the Christmas story, Christmas Carol, right?
Yep. Christmas Carol, and is the same thing too. You think about it. So maybe that's one of the original. I mean, the Christmas Carol is so old. That might be the original Mindbender. When you think about how Scrooge was dealing with everything.
Ebenezer Scrooge, right. That he is sort of everything, reality almost goes on pause while he gets to go and be taken around, and then it comes back and it's Christmas and fatted goose, right?
Exactly. Here comes the... was that real, or did he just bonk his head?
Right.
Yeah. Do you know of any movies like this coming out soon? I think that's kind of hard to know.
Well, Mindbenders, it's also different. I mean, when I was talking about M. Night Shyamalan... Maybe only some of those, I was wrong now that I'm thinking about it more, only some of those are Mindbenders. Most of those are just twists.
Right.
And I guess that's a different thing.
But so Shutter Island, when we talked about Shutter Island, I feel like the end of that acts like a twist. But I like the word you used when you were talking about childhood stories and where we were doing with things. Archetypal. I think archetype is really what we're talking here, is that it's a type of story that we tell, and it needs that sort of that full sort of vehicle to get it through. So I think that's more like that, where there's a twist at the end of the story, and you can walk away considering whether Leonardo DiCaprio was living something that was staged or if he made it up in his mind. But really, it's just a twist at the end of the story, and if you follow it through to the end, that's what it is. And that's like M. Night Shyamalan. At
the very end, when he's talking to Mark Ruffalo, do you think he knows the truth and that he was insane, and then decides to get the lobotomy anyways?
For me, I say yes, but that's just because I love that. I love that that it's a way of therapy. And through it, he gains clarity, and with clarity, he makes that choice. But that's just the way I choose to watch it. But that's why I like Shutter Island.
Yeah,
because you can have this discussion about it and see what you want to do with it. What's your opinion about it?
I do too. There are some clues, but it's mostly so just in a look that he gives, a sidelong look that he gives to Mark Ruffalo. So I think it's equal way that you can look, both what he says when he goes back about that they have people everywhere and stuff. I think that he is making the choice. And again, that's another film. This is now the fourth film about someone descending into a dream.
Right.
And then coming back out, in effect. Either with better or less understanding. I guess better understanding, yeah.
And I love that stuff. And I think I'm going to choose to go with archetype. I don't know. I think that's the thing that I'm resolving here for the end of this. I don't know if everyone will agree with me on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But with a lot of different factions, a lot of different little ways and nuances of ways to do it.
Right. And I think our other thugs will probably disagree with us. And hopefully people listening to this, wherever they are, have different ideas too.
Bring it. Come at us.
If you can think of another word to describe this type of movie, you should leave us a note somewhere, like at Facebook or at thenextreel.com, because we'd like to hear it.
JJ votes for archetype. I still am sticking with head scratchers.
Head scratchers, or we started with Mindbender. That's how we're going to label it. I don't know.
Mindbender's the better one.
Yeah.
No, but archetype makes sense. Yeah.
Good. So these are our TNR shorts. And if you at home, if you're listening to this at home or in the car or on your headphones, if you like what you're hearing in terms of the new TNR short content or any of the other content we're doing, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, because it helps more and more people find out about all the crazy stuff we're doing. Tommy, do you want to talk about anything that you're working on?
I got a puppy.
Yeah. Okay. I think we know that, don't we?
Oh, great. I just wanted to make sure. I always want to tell people that I got a puppy. Actually, I am. I'm working on my own first TNR short, solo short, called Wait, Hear Me Out, where I will talk about what I feel are hidden gems of movies that you would look at the title of and think that I'm drunk or lying. I am neither. Well, I'm one of those. But I hopefully will be giving you some new movies to check out that are overlooked.
That's awesome. So everyone out there, keep eyeing your subscribe podcast for that. The wait, what is it? Wait,
hear me out. And it has to seem desperate. That's the way to say it.
It's about hidden gems. Or Speakeasy, which is involving Hollywood insiders, Hollywood professionals talking about things they're doing in Hollywood. Or check out thenextreel.com for details on our massive library of ambling historical content about movies. And there is a lot there. So until then, thanks so much for listening to our Yammer and Prattle. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
I love the conversations that so many of our hosts have had on their shows. Steve and JJ on Trailer Rewind, Ray and Ocean on Silver Linings, even Tommy's short-lived Wait, Hear Me Out.
So many listeners want to make sure they've watched the movie before tuning in to any discussion on our podcasts. Well, you know, the best way to watch the movie is to look it up on our watch page.
Our watch page lists all the movies that we have discussed on all the shows from the Next Reel's family of podcasts, including the one you're listening to right now. It's your one-stop shop for Apple and Amazon links where you can rent or buy the movie.
Trailer Rewind movies like Raw,
The Nice Guys,
The Peanut Butter Falcon,
or Free Fire.
No, Wait, Hear Me Out movies like Josie and the Pussycats or Return of the Living Dead.
Or Silver Linings movies like Repo Men, Daredevil, and The Wolfman.
Plus, by using those links to rent or purchase movies, Apple and Amazon will show us a little bit of love, which allows you to support our family of shows with minimal effort.
It's a great way to support the show and find something to watch.
That's right. Head over to thenextreel.com/watch to pick out your next movie and start watching today.